Hey boys, back in action tomorrow. Huge game, it cannot be understated. Two get two teams going into this in quite poor form. You have to admit, right? Liverpool, yes, they're top of the table, but if you watch them play, they haven't been that impressive. They're finding ways to win, which is a credit to them. But look, at the end of the day, you have to look at performances over results, and they haven't been that impressive. They're coming off a loss in the Champions League as well. And look, we're going into this game. We certainly haven't been, very consistent this season. You can just look at our last couple of fixtures. Look, we're leaking goals, definitely. It was nice to keep the clean sheet against Benfica, but we're certainly not a team in form. If we had won, three or even four of our last five, maybe I'd give us a bit more hope going into this. But to be brutally honest, I don't think we're going to win. Let's have a look, right? I mean, we can just have a look at the head-to-head. So we did beat them back in May, quite convincingly, 3-1. But if you look at the lineup, it wasn't a full strength Liverpool team by any means. I mean, just look at that midfield by theirs, right? They'd already won the league by here, to be honest. Not to put away this performance, it was a good performance. Yeah. And look, scoring 3 goals against Liverpool is no easy feat. But if you put it more into practice, right, their midfield didn't work together. They beat us at Old Trafford. That was the Carabao Cup. So, the last sort of Stamford Bridge games, we've either won or they've been quite low scoring draws. To be honest, I am sort of predicting a draw here. If any team's more likely to win, it's probably Liverpool. The odds are sort of favouring that as well. I went with a draw. And the team FootMob is predicted as well. That is the team, I'd probably go with. This is the team I sort of drafted up. I don't think Conor Bradley's going to play. I think it'll be, Shabazlai playing right back. And Wirtz will start. Whether Isaac or Ekateke starts, we'll see, right? Yeah. And look, Kanate's in poor form. It's going to be a debut for Mamad Shili. That's a difficult name to pronounce. But yeah, it's going to be his debut. He's probably, it's a keeper I would like at Chelsea, to be honest. He's there to sort of the long-term replacement of Alisson, right? And if you watched him in the last couple of years, he's a big presence. He's a big guy in goals as well. So it is his first game for Liverpool. So, can we hurt them in that respect? Definitely can. But ultimately, he is still a decent keeper. We'll see if he makes any mistakes on his debut. Kanate is in poor form. People are joking, check his Duolingo, it's Spanish status, right? Because it looks like, his contract's out next summer. He could be moving to Real Madrid. Conor Bradley hasn't been in great form, so I don't think he'll play. They have been using Szoboszlai there and showing up things a little bit. I don't expect Frimpong to start. The guy can't defend. So if he does start, we can definitely exploit that side. And perhaps Gusto will start and we could, exploit it that way. And maybe try and get some runs in behind. I suspect it'll probably be Cucurella who will be tasked with that, and we know we can get forward. So if we move into, who I'd pick, Sanchez obviously picks himself, Reece James picks himself. Now, we could look like this and we could play Gusto there and we could go with a free man. I think Cucurella and James as that free man, I think we need a bit more presence. So yes, you could play Gusto here and he can have license to just bomb forward and be a menace down that side. But no, I'd go with this. I think we need the experience with Reece James. I would start a Chompyong, and to be honest, there's no one else to really play that position. We could go, Chalaba's out, so Fofana's out with the concussion as well. So we could go maybe, Badiashile here, and then we could go Joel Hatto here. But I think Maresca's not going to want to have two left-footed centre-backs. I think he's going to want to have a Chompyong start. And then I would go with Badiashile as well. Joel Hatto I thought, a pretty decent game. But I think when Badiashile's in decent form, he played well against Benfica. I think he should start, whether he's fully fit again, because he said he was tired after the Benfica game. I think we need him to play, to be honest. We need that left-footed. Joel Hatto can do it, but I think Joel Hatto and the Chompyong is a very young partnership, and Badiashile is not old anyway. So it's definitely a young centre-back partnership, but that's the nature of Chelsea, right? We don't have an old head to play. So is that experience maybe going to hurt us against, a Salah and Ekateke, potentially? Cucurella obviously starts. We're going to need him to have a big performance, and I'm sure he'll play well. And Lavia seems to always be fit for Liverpool. I don't know what it is, but every time we play Liverpool, Lavia comes back from injury. I'd throw him straight into the starting lineup, whether he's fit or not. We have seen, Caicedo play here, and then we go like this, and then we could play someone in the 10. We could play maybe Estevao here, and play Neto there, and Garnacho on the left, maybe something like that, if we want to try and exploit the high line a bit more. So we have seen Caicedo start as a right back, but in possession, he's in midfield, right? When we've got Lavia. So we could also see that as well. It'll be interesting to see what lineup Maresca does go with. But I think, let's go with the Caicedo and Lavia pivot. I think play Lavia a bit deeper. It's the classic 6. He can take the ball on the half turn, beat the press. It's really hard to get the ball off Lavia. We all know that. And play Caicedo a bit more of a box-to-box, I think. And then Fernandez can be that sort of advanced playmaker a bit up the pitch. I do like Fernandez as the deep line playmaker, playing a bit more deeper in midfield. But I think, we need the Lavia presence. Lavia can beat the press a bit better. It doesn't quite have the passing range, you'd have to say. But I think alternatively, we could just play a 4-3-3 as well. And we could just decide to play Fernandez a little deeper and try and hit them on the counter-attack with our 2 pacey wingers. So there's a few ways we can line up, to be honest. I think this is the team I'd like to see start. And you could also potentially bench Estevao and play Neto here. And then maybe start Garnacho or maybe start Gittins. But personally, I don't think I would. If anyone was going to start, I'd do Garnacho because of his pace. We could look to exploit their high line and maybe get a goal or make a mistake from it that way, right? So we could do that. And Neto is much better off the right than left. It's not ideal having him on the left. But I just think the 2 left wingers we signed, which is kind of ironic, right? We signed 2 left wingers, combined 100 million, and they're both not ready to play. So why did we go out and why did we buy them? So I think we just have to squeeze Estevao into the team, and that means Neto ultimately has to move over to the left. And that's just the way I would line up. But I'd like to see, I think Estevao's dribbling, you can still see he's a bit raw in the final third, but I think, he's only going to get better as he gets older and just gets more experience. Because if you saw him when he was playing for the Brazilian team, right, he was sort of the main guy. So he was comfortable with all that responsibility. But at Chelsea, brand new club, brand new environment, he can't come in and say, I'm the main guy. He's 18, right, at Chelsea. So I expect his final third to be a bit sloppy in that regard. But you can see with the dribbling and the playmaking, it's all there. It's just going to click one day and then he's a superstar. Everyone can see that. So I think let's just play him on the right. He is young, but I think he needs to start. And then João Pedro up top. Obviously, there's no one else to really play that position. Mark Gay potentially might not even play a single minute for us, right? Because he could be going to Strasbourg and Omega comes and swaps with us, right? So Mark Gay might not even play. He's just going to be on the bench and he won't play until, the winter transfer market. So João Pedro, again, I know he's got a bit of a knock. He's not fully fit, and I think it's the same with Caicedo. We've got a few players just playing through pain at the moment. And due to the nature of the injuries we've already got. And I think, the squad building being quite poor this summer as well. All it takes, if João Pedro gets injured, who are we playing? It's not looking good. We're going to play Tyreek George up here? Or we're going to go Neto false 9? Or we'll have to play Mark Gay? Surprise, surprise, we'll have to play a striker we have at the club. But otherwise, we do look thin in that department. There's a few ways we can line up, right? And we've gone over it. I think it's, a big game for a champion. This could be a game that really puts himself out there. And Maresca says, you know what? He's undroppable. He puts that performance in against Liverpool. This is our main centre-back from now on. So even when Chalobah, Tosin, Fofana, these players come back, the champion's that guy. So, there's places to be won in this team. Same with Badger Shield. It's going to be him and Joel Hatto probably battling for that left centre-back spot this season, whilst Colwell is out for the injury. But Badger Shield's a bit injury prone. But I think if he can stay fit and get a good run of games, there's a player there. I don't think, we bought him similar time with Disasi. He's definitely much clearer of that. He's a pretty good ball playing defender. So, going back to the game, whether Wirtz plays or not, I think Ekiteke will probably start, and maybe they try and find a way for Isaac and Ekiteke to start, or Isaac will come on about 60, 70th minute like they've been doing. I don't know if Slot has quite found a way to play both of them yet. like I say, Szoboszlai will probably play right back. Burkies will probably play instead of Robertson, and it'll be Konate Van Dijk partnership, right? And it'll be this pivot, Gravenberch, McAllister. I think we can maybe get at McAllister. Gravenberch is obviously he's in good form. He's a really good midfielder, right? But I think McAllister, we can definitely get at him. If we get Caicedo to really press him, he can lose the ball, right? Salah hasn't quite been at it this season. Saying that, he'll probably score against us, but he's not been, banging it in like Haaland is in current form. Szoboszlai is going to have to play right back because I don't think Slot trusts anyone else to play there. So he's going to be out of position. Whether we can hurt them, like in that respect, we'll see. But we certainly can't give them any good free kick opportunities because they've got some good takers in their team. Maybe Gakpo starts, maybe Chiesa starts. I don't know. I quite like Chiesa as a player, but apparently Slot just doesn't really rate him. He doesn't play much, but I quite like him. And then it'll probably be Ekateke up top, right? And then maybe Wirtz here. We'll see how it looks. But it might go over two-man striker partnership. I don't know if they'll test that in the game against Chelsea. But to be honest, I'm kind of thinking a low-scoring game, if I'm being brutally honest. Under 2.5 is what I might go for. I'm sort of swaying between a 1-1 draw. Could even be 0-0. I think maybe both teams cancel each other out. We've got the international break coming up as well, so maybe players are a little tired and they'll try and just cruise the game. That could be a factor, But if there's any team more likely to win, I'm going to go with Liverpool. And that hurts saying that, obviously as a Chelsea fan, but I just think they're just firing a bit more than us. Where do I see the goals coming from? João Pedro hasn't had that many shots in the last couple of games, right? And defensively, we do like to give chances up. We can be quite naive and just give them a half chance. And in the big games, those are going to hurt us. If we're doing that against the smaller clubs, Liverpool are definitely going to hurt us in that respect. So, could Liverpool win like 2-1, 1-0? They definitely could. I don't think if any team's going to score a lot, it won't be us. I don't see many goals. So, look, I'd love for us to go out and win, maybe 2-1, 2-0. We could even keep a clean sheet somehow. But I just don't see it, in all honesty. But if, we can look ahead as well. After the Liverpool game, say we do get a good result and we go out and we beat Liverpool. We get a 2-1 win, whatever. It could be scrappy, it couldn't be the best performance, but we go out and win. Forest away is a very winnable game. You're looking at Ange, the fans have already turned against him. They're already singing, you're going to get sacked in the morning. I think we can go out there, let's pile the misery on, let's go out, be ruthless, let's go out and get him sacked. So, I think that Forest away game, I quite like that. I think, that's 3 points in the bag. Ajax, in the Champions League, Ajax I do not rate this season. We could just have a quick look at them. But look, they're in really poor form. They're third in the Eredivisie, coming off, 4-0 loss to Marseille as well. That's a game we can win, definitely. And then Sunderland, it's not going to be an easy game. They're newly promoted, yes, but I quite like their team. Xhaka's really holding it down in midfield. So it's a tricky game, but you say on paper Chelsea should win. And then it's the same for Wolves away. Wolves away are one of the worst teams in the league. So we've got a chance here to really put some, solid wins together. So I just hope we don't go out there and we don't embarrass ourselves. We don't lose 3-0 or something ridiculous like that. But to be honest, I don't see that. If we do get a draw, it's not the end of the world because just looking ahead, the fixtures that are coming, they're quite favourable to us. And these are games I expect us to win, especially, Forest away. I can't see Ange surviving. We'll see what happens this weekend, but it's not looking good for Forest. And it just didn't make sense. Going from a pragmatic coach to a coach who likes to play a high line attacking, it just doesn't work, right? They haven't built the team for that. So, final prediction for the game tomorrow. I'm going to go 1-1. I think that it's going to be a draw. Probably won't be the most exciting game. It's two teams slightly out of form. So, going forward, they're not going to be clicking. It's the same with us, and I think it'll be the same for them as well. So hopefully Isaac doesn't come off the bench and get a winner, something like that. But yeah, final prediction 1-1. So see you tomorrow, boys, after the game with the match reaction, and hopefully we get the 3 points. So up the Chelsea.